Dictation will start in 5 seconds. Start. In the court of competent jurisdiction, the present matter arises out of a civil dispute between the parties concerning the enforcement of contractual obligations and the alleged breach thereof. Stop. The plaintiff submits that a valid agreement was executed between the parties, clearly defining their respective rights and duties. Stop. It is contended that the plaintiff performed all obligations diligently and within the stipulated time, whereas the defendant failed to comply with essential conditions without any lawful justification. Stop. The plaintiff further avers that repeated notices were duly served upon the defendant, calling upon him to rectify the breach and fulfill pending obligations. Stop. Despite such notices, the defendant neglected and refused to act in accordance with the agreed terms, thereby causing substantial financial loss and mental distress to the plaintiff. Stop. It is also submitted that the defendant's conduct amounts to willful default and deliberate avoidance of contractual responsibilities. Stop. The cause of action arose on multiple dates when the defendant failed to perform his obligations, and the same continues to subsist as the breach remains unremedied. Stop. The jurisdiction of his honorable court is properly invoked as the contract was executed within its territorial limits and the cause of action arose herein. Stop. The plaintiff seeks a decree for specific performance directing the defendant to comply with the terms of the agreement in letter and spirit. Stop. In the alternative, the plaintiff prays for compensation for losses suffered due to the defendant's failure. Stop. The plaintiff also seeks interest on the claimed amount along with costs of the proceedings. Stop. It is further prayed that this honorable court may pass such other orders as deemed fit and proper in the interest of justice. Stop. The defendant in response has denied the allegations and contended that no breach was committed on his part. Stop. It is submitted that any delay was occasioned by circumstances beyond control and therefore no liability can be fastened upon the defendant. Stop. The defendant further asserts that the plaintiff himself failed to fulfill certain preliminary conditions, thereby disentitling him from seeking equitable relief. Stop. It is also argued that the suit is not maintainable in the present form and is liable to be dismissed. Stop. Both parties have relied upon documentary evidence and oral submissions to substantiate their respective claims. Upon consideration of the pleadings, evidence, and arguments advanced, the court is required to determine whether a valid contract existed, whether there was a breach, and whether the plaintiff is entitled to the reliefs claimed. Stop. The court must also examine the conduct of the parties and assess if equity favors granting the relief sought. Stop. After careful analysis, the court may grant appropriate relief in accordance with law and established principles of justice, equity, and good conscience. Stop. The final adjudication shall be based on merits and applicable legal provisions. Stop. The parties are directed to maintain decorum and cooperate with the proceedings to ensure expeditious disposal of the matter. Stop. Any unnecessary adjournment shall be discouraged in the interest of justice. Stop. The record shall be examined thoroughly and findings shall be recorded with clarity and precision. Stop. The decree once passed shall be enforceable in accordance with law and non-compliance shall invite appropriate consequences as prescribed under relevant status. Full stop.